Welcome to NFL World, where NFL starts and ends. I'm your host, Jacob. And before we do the week 2 predictions, I think it's important that we talk about a few things. So, we're going to talk about Puka Nakua, the booing of Daniel Jones, and slash Deshaun Watson. We're also going to talk a little bit about Jamar Chase. I didn't put it in the thumbnail or anything like that, but we will talk about Chase. And then we'll also have our predictions, which I find pretty great, to be honest with you. So let's talk about Puka Nakua. Puka Nakua had gotten injured in camp. He was in camp at some point during the year, injured his knee, and was out. Didn't play at all in the preseason, as everyone knew he wasn't. But he was expected to be fine for week 1, and he was out there. He was out there for week 1, and then at some point in the game, he took a hit, and there goes his knee, and he re-aggravates his knee. And so he was taken out of the game, but he thought he could still go. He got basically from the end zone to like the 1 or 2 yard line, and it's like, no, I can't. And he couldn't walk his way back. It was so bad. So they had the cart come out for him. He got on the cart by himself, and then they drove him off the field. So Puka's out for 4 games because the Rams decided, let's put him on IR, get him healthy. These injuries take time. They really do. You're seeing this kind of with Russell Wilson. I know a lot of people made fun of Russell Wilson because he was inactive, the emergency third quarterback, but he was inactive, but yet he was in uniform, like as if he was going to go. I'm like, why is Russ in full uniform? And everyone else had the same opinion. Why is Russ fully dressed if he knew he wasn't playing? I don't know. It beats me. But the thing is, Wilson had the same issue. He had a calf strain, but later in the week, they said, well, he's questionable with a hammy. So it went from calf strain to hammy. Then it went, okay, no, it's a calf strain. All right. Do we know if he's playing? Well, we're not certain yet. It's game time decision. Okay. And then, like an hour before kickoff, they said he's out. Okay. But those things don't happen like that. And the same thing goes, like Justin Fields got his opportunity. I thought he played well. Now he could be getting another opportunity for week 2. The same goes when you have these injuries that they just are nagging injuries. They just don't go away. You have to deal with it as much as you can. The Rams doing this was a precautionary measure. They probably didn't have to do this. They chose to do this because they didn't want Puka to actually really get hurt. So I get it, but it does limit the Rams' offense of what they want to do. Because I think they definitely needed him out there against the Lions. They made it work, but you lose a weapon that is difficult to come back with. Not having a guy like that. Some more injuries. The Christian McCaffrey stuff I found interesting. McCaffrey, like Russell Wilson, had a calf injury in camp. And the week before the game, he took himself out of a practice. I think it was like on a Friday or something like that. It's a precautionary measure. We get to Monday, and it's a game, and I see on my computer, it says McCaffrey is out with a calf. I'm like, okay, this is a lot different. Maybe the Jets actually have a chance. It didn't matter. The Jets were terrible. But I didn't know that at the time. When we were watching the game on the little ticker for ESPN, it goes and puts McCaffrey out with the calf and Achilles. First time I ever heard Achilles was mentioned. Last night, I was scrolling through and I came across this. It says report McCaffrey Achilles tendonitis, iffy for week 2 against the Vikings. Now, when someone says their Achilles is a little tender, that's not a good thing for them. And I know McCaffrey's like, well, I could go. I believe I can go. Dude, you want to beat the Jets with a backup running back? I would be concerned if I'm going against a better team that actually has run defense. Because not having Christian McCaffrey is not having another weapon. And just like we talked about Puka, when you don't have that guy and you come back in a game, it makes it so much harder. It's already difficult, but you make it 10 times harder than it needs to be. So, what would I do if I was coach, if I was Kyle Shanahan? I'd keep him out. There's no reason. If I put Christian McCaffrey in the game and he's hurt and he comes out of that game and he's injured because he tears his Achilles, I don't feel good about myself. I understand you can't think that way, but I would definitely take every precaution necessary. Now, if we're a few weeks down the road and it's still bad, it's still still has tendonitis in it, maybe we have a different conversation. But as of now, keep him on the sidelines in sweats and let the other running backs give it a shot. That's what I do. Next up, the booing of Daniel Jones and Deshaun Watson. Well, I was talking about this to my family this past week about how Dak takes a lot of heat for the position he's in because he's in Texas. He's with the Cowboys. That's a big brand. The Giants and the Browns are very big brands as well. The Giants are in New York, and the Browns haven't had anything good for a very long time at quarterback. If the Browns did not play well, Deshaun played horrible against the Cowboys. He played terrible. Where there was times he would get pressure and he couldn't do anything. It was like he couldn't think properly with the pressure in his face. Then when he wasn't getting pressured, he thought, okay, he'll get it back. He'll be okay. But because he was pressured all game, his mental clock for the time he's got to get rid of the football was sped up. So he was even struggling with that. The little things of Deshaun Watson struggling cause issues, big issues. And I said this on Monday's show. Stefanski, Watson, Ken Dorsey all have to go and sit down and figure out what is going on. How do we fix Deshaun? How do we do this? How do we do that? And how do we make it so Deshaun doesn't look so bad all the time and act where he looks pretty decent or even really good at times? The same needs to be said for the Giants. We talked about this. When Saquon Barkley left, that was a problem. It didn't make it any better the fact that when Saquon left, they were doing Hard Knocks. The Giants were. So this was all on Hard Knocks. And you see John Mara standing there listening to the GM, Joe Shane, and him saying, if he talking about Barkley, if he goes to Philadelphia, I can't forgive myself. I can't forgive myself. Which is exactly what he did. He went to Philadelphia. And it ended up, that was bad. Him going and scoring 3 touchdowns made it worse. In the first game, made it worse for the Giants fans. But then what made it over the top, like completely over the top, was the Giants unable to move the football and unable to score touchdowns. They only scored 6 points, and Daniel Jones was awful. He was awful. And we said this right on this channel. We said if they don't pay Saquon, this Giants team's got nowhere to go. It won't be good. They can't move the ball. What have we seen in week 1? They played the Vikings with Sam Darnold as the quarterback. The Vikings moved it up and down the field. The Giants couldn't move it at all. And Daniel Jones looked bad. At times, think of it like this. Playing quarterback is like jumping out of a plane. When you have a team, it's like jumping out of a plane and going parachute. You've picked a quarterback and you're going on this flight all the way down. As you're going down, you're not winning games. Not everyone's going to win games. I get that. But when you don't play great, it's like you're slamming into the ground over and over and over again. Well, eventually, you're tired of slamming into the ground. So when do you pull the ripcord? When do you pull the ripcord and say, nope, we're done. Bye. Because we can't land this thing safely. When do I pull this ripcord? And hope, okay, we'll give it another shot. That's where the Giants are. Where and when do I pull the ripcord? I'm not saying Drew Lock is a better option. I'm just saying, like, if Daniel Jones doesn't get it right in a matter of weeks, we could be seeing the end of the Daniel Jones era in New York. And that also goes for Deshaun Watson. I understand he's going through his off-the-field stuff again. I get that. Which he vehemently denies. But, like, at what point do the Browns say, we're done. We're done. We can't do this anymore. This doesn't work. Because every other quarterback that we've had on this team can move the ball, can run the ball, can complete passes. Why? We brought in Joe Flacco off the couch a year ago. We weren't going to make the playoffs. We had 5 different starting quarterbacks win a game for us. Let me see if I can do this off the top of my head here. Deshaun, Scott Thompson, Dwayne Thompson-Robinson, PJ Walker, I'm forgetting one. The other one's Joe Flacco, but I'm forgetting one. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make is this. You win a game with 5 different starting quarterbacks. That's not easy to do. You're playing guys who've not played great in other places, but you had no choice. You won games with them. That's kind of what you were having to do. Why, for whatever reason, when Deshaun is there, he looks completely scared when he's playing quarterback. And they were booing him for it. They started booing Daniel Jones in the second quarter. They started booing Deshaun Watson around the same time in the second quarter. They just couldn't move the football. The fans in New York and in Cleveland were not happy, and rightfully so. So how do you fix it? At what point do you pull this ripcord and say, this does not work? We have to make a move now. Now, in the case of the Browns, you have Jameis Winston. When do you make that move? I don't know. In the case of the Giants, I think it's Tommy DeVito. When do you make that move? I don't know. But at some point, you got to make it. Whether it's now, 2 weeks from now, 2 months from now, you have to make this move. Because if this doesn't work with Jones or Watson, it never will. Before we hit our game predictions, let's do the report that came out this morning from the Bengals. It says the Bengals made a record-setting offer to Ja'Marr Chase. And could this mean new contract? Well, this is what was written by John Breach. Bengals made a record-setting offer to Ja'Marr Chase, but talks broke down after one sticking point. The record-setting contract offer was, let me see. The Bengals offered him $140 million at $35 million per year, which would tie Justin Jefferson as the highest paid guy. Okay. So if we're really slicing and dicing, that's pretty close. The key details of that deal, though, of this new contract for Ja'Marr Chase, if we can get to it. Here we go. Is the Bengals included $90 million in practical guarantees, along with $30 million at signing. Jefferson had got $110 in guarantees, so the Bengals were not quite matching the deal of Justin Jefferson. Why did Chase decide he wasn't accepting that deal? Chase decided he didn't like the structure of the guarantees. Bengals were trying to pay them out by 2027. Chase wants them sooner. So let's explain this. 2027 is 3 years away. 3 years. If I was the Bengals, that's what I try to do too. I'm not trying to spend extra money in practical guarantees. That's a really interesting term, by the way. Practical guarantees. It means we have guarantees for you here that you're likely to get. So it's pretty much free money. But here's guarantees that you're more likely not getting, because it all matters on games played and whether or not we make the playoffs, and if we win playoff games, and how many snaps, and this and that, and various other things. But if you're also trying to only pay them out by 2027, that's the player that's looking at that. He's like, why would I sign this contract if for 3 years I can basically be cut because the guarantees aren't very high? That's what he's looking at, and I get it. It continues on. Why would the Bengals not be willing to change their offer? The Bengals have been doing business for the same way for years. The only full guaranteed money players get in their first years doing the deal, and is usually in the form of a signing bonus. In this instance, Chase would get $30 million in signing. But the Bengals were sticking to their standard structure. Chase would essentially have rolling guarantees, and his full $90 million practical guarantees wouldn't be paid out until 2027. So you look at these contracts from the Cowboys, from the Vikings, the Dolphins, the Lions, guys who have been paying their wide receivers the last year or so, their guarantees are pretty lucrative, but they're also in every year that there's a good amount of guaranteed money in there. Or there is a understanding of, okay, we're not going to give you this much guarantees this year because when we restructure, that's all going to be guaranteed anyway. We are going to put more restrictions in earlier in the contract so you can get that money because later in the years you will get more guarantees. That's what they do, and the players understand. The Dolphins do a very similar thing. A lot of these teams do similar things. The Bengals have always been one of those teams also who they don't enjoy spending that type of money. Like the $90 million sounds like it's only going to be throughout the contract. Well, if $30 million is at signing, at some point, where does the $60 million fall? Like that's a very interesting deal to think about. It continues on. The issue that there is when sought out before 2027, the Bengals could theoretically dump Chase before the money became guaranteed. The point I made earlier. The guarantees could only maybe hit in 2026. By that time, the Bengals could say, no, we're done, bye, and not pay him his guarantees. Jamar Chase does not want that. He wants commitment. This is like when you go and you start dating somebody, you got to make the next step in your relationship. She wants a commitment or he wants a commitment for the next year. That's what they want. They want, like, I'm committed to this person. Here's a ring. Now we are engaged. This is what I want so badly. I'm going to go and get engaged with this person because I'm committing to her or to him. And the Bengals are not willing to do that here. They're not willing to take a next step. It's not that Jamar Chase hasn't earned it. It's the fact that Bengals have chosen they don't want to do that. Now, ultimately, will they? Maybe. It's not as simple as saying, yes, the Cowboys will because the Cowboys fold in these negotiations. The Bengals are a lot more tough-minded in this respect. It continues on. To put it into perspective, let's look at the Justin Jefferson deal. He's getting $88.74 fully guaranteed at signing. His practical guarantee, though, is $110 million, which means that money is expected to be earned, which is the next point. They're getting $90 million to Jamar, which is technically more money on the big figure number. But the deal for guarantees, Justin Jefferson is going to make $20 million more just on practical guarantees alone, because of he's almost making 90 at signing, which is what Jamar Chase is making throughout the term of the contract on practicals. So that's what has happened. And the final part of this, before we hit our predictions, is in 2024, Justin Jefferson has a fully guaranteed signing bonus at $36.94 million, a fully guaranteed base salary at $1.125 million. In 2025, he has a fully guaranteed option bonus of $30 million, along with a fully guaranteed base salary of $1.17 a fully guaranteed workout bonus of $250,000, and a total of $510,000 per game roster bonus that he gets paid being active each week. This essentially means that Jefferson will get to take home $70 million in guarantees by the end of 2025. So basically, 70 of his $110 million that he would make over the length of the contract after 2025, he will have 70 million of it. That's very player friendly. The Bengals don't live with that part of it. The final part of this that we'll read here is also if the Vikings were to cut him in 2024 or 2025, he'd walk away with a fully guaranteed 88.74. So basically, the nice way to put this is Justin got a very lucrative deal that has a lot of money in the next couple years, so he would get paid. Jamar is trying to fight for that deal. The Bengals are holding them off. Now, week 2, I should say, of our prediction, not great. Let's say that 2-3 was our record. 2-3. Let's have a better week 2. We have quite a bit of games. Actually, we won't cover the Bills and Dolphins, but we'll have these games right here. We have Raiders at Ravens. 9.5 points going to the Ravens. That's how much they're favored by. Both these teams are 0-1. Both these teams have played not great football. I'm concerned about the Raiders' rush defense. They made J.K. Dobbins, who's coming off an Achilles injury, look awesome. Do you know who they got? They got Derrick Henry, they got Justice Hill, and they got Lamar Jackson. And when Mitchell comes back, they'll have him too. That's a scary team. So I'm taking the Ravens. It's not going to be particularly close. The Ravens get back on track. The Raiders have to go back to the drawing board. 31-10 is my score. Ravens win. Next up, the first 1 o'clock game for the Cowboys. Saints at Cowboys. 6.5 point favorites are the Cowboys. If you looked at these two games in week 1, if week 1 actually mattered that much, this should be the best game. Because these are the two highest scoring teams. Or almost two highest scoring teams, I should say. Top 5s. Saints scored 47. Cowboys scored 33. On defense, Cowboys gave up 17. Saints gave up 10. Okay. Obviously different opponents, of course. Cowboys were playing the Browns. Saints were playing the Panthers, the Carolina Panthers. This is where it kind of goes like this, I think, for the Saints. They play a really good pressure defense in the Cowboys. They harassed Deshaun Watson to the point Deshaun Watson didn't look like he wanted to be there. The Panthers only pressured Derek Carr 3 times. All game. Not quarter, not 3 times a game. That game. They couldn't pressure him. He had a clean pocket. How did he reward that? 1 sack. Derek Carr took 2 completions, a touchdown, no INTs. Okay. The Cowboys pressured Deshaun Watson on, I think it was 50% of his snaps. 43% of those snaps went nowhere. Or went backwards. That tells you something. So, and they also had 6 sacks. With me saying all that, I take the Cowboys to win this game. And it will be one of those interesting games, I think. If we get out the first quarter, I want to see how the Cowboys defense, how the Cowboys defense looks against the Saints. I want to see how the Cowboys offense looks on third down because they were not good at it. But I have Cowboys winning. Score is 28-14. Next up, Seahawks versus Packers. Seahawks versus Patriots. Excuse me. I saw the P. Patriots are getting +3 against the Seahawks. And that's fair, I think. I mean, it's a home game, but the Seahawks are a good team. I think Vegas is looking at this and saying, yes, the Patriots beat the Bengals, but the Seahawks start better. They have a run game. Let's see if Kenneth Walker plays. Let's see how good Tyler Lockett looks. Let's see how good DK Metcalf looks. That's going to be a fun match, honestly. Metcalf versus Gonzalez. That's going to be fun. But yeah, I have the Seahawks winning. Score is 28-24. That's going to be my game for it. Next up, 49ers versus Vikings. Vikings +6. I wonder if it's because Vegas thinks McCaffrey could play, or I wonder if they think the Vikings are just not that great. And probably if Sam Darnold can do it again. I think this is a safe bet. I'm taking the 49ers just because Sam Darnold played the Giants last week. I think the Niners are better than the Giants for sure, so I'm taking the Niners. It'll be a close game. 24-20. Next up, this is going to be a fun game, actually. As the Tampa Bay Buccaneers go and play the Lions in Detroit. Baker Mayfield and the Buccaneers roll into town against the Lions. This game is going to be really exciting because as I'm just thinking of it now, these are 2 playoff games that the Lions have just played a year ago. That's what happened. The Lions played the Buccaneers in the divisional round a year ago, and last week the Lions played the Rams in the wild card a year ago. They played the Rams week 1, a team that they played in the wild card. Now they play the Buccaneers, who they faced in the divisional round. I didn't know that's how actually their schedule worked. I'm all for it. Lions -7, so they really don't think the Buccaneers will win on the road. This is going to be a fun game. I think Buccaneers. Look, when you have Chris Godwin, you have Mike Evans, who can go out there, perform. That's good enough for me, personally. I don't think the Lions' defense is that great at their cornerback position, so give me the Buccaneers with the score of 35-28. Next up, Rams versus Cardinals. Cardinals are actually favored in this game by 1 point. I don't think it matters. I think the Rams win. I think the Rams showed me something on Sunday. They didn't have Aaron Donald. Puka Nakua goes out. The injury at the backup left tackle, because the starting left tackle was out with an injury. They make it work. They made it work. They have backup tackles, and they make this work. I believe in the Rams. I mean, Matthew Stafford's going to drag this team as far as he can go. So I have the Rams winning this game. 28-20. Cardinals keep it somewhat close. And final game, Bengals versus the Chiefs. Chiefs are favored by 6. This game is happening because why not? Because it was supposed to happen a year ago when Joe Burrow got hurt. So they made it as early as possible without having a really bad game. Bengals coming off a loss. We'll see if T. Higgins can go. I don't know what could slow Xavier Worthy down. I'm gonna say the Chiefs win just because the Bengals look so horrible and have a slow start. So the Chiefs win. It's not a blowout, but they win 28-21. And that is the predictions for week 2. Let me know in the comments of who you would predict to win week 2 from these selected games. For NFL World, I'm Jacob Hubert. Out.